the circle how one feels about Israel
Yeah.
and the response of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And this seems to be a good forum for such.
This is a great forum This is a great forum for discussions. We are on page 94. On page 94, last time we finished the third chapter of Shema, and one of our members of the community mentioned this to me. She watches it online, and mentioned that I said last time that there's that it is important to walk around very, very clearly Jewish in public. And I mentioned it as far as what is the tzitzit and having it as a reminder and all of these things in an outright way. And she asked me if it does not put us more in danger to out ourselves as Jewish in public. This is right last week. Last week, the week before, there was a terrorist attack in London, right? Where terrorists saw two very, very obviously Jewish people and stabbed them, right? Said if they were, more modernized, if they looked less Jewish, would they have not been attacked? And the answer is it could be, right? But whenever in Jewish history, and I just wanted to make sure that I brought this up as an answer because I did tell this to her, but I also wanted it to be clear for everybody, is throughout Jewish history, whenever Jews hid their Jewishness, every single time there has been a rise in anti-Semitism that follows, and the justification is even you're ashamed of being you, right? So you are giving some sort of justification for outright hate. On the other side, whenever Jews stand proudly, the individual may suffer the consequence, but the collective is more protected. And there's an example in this actually from the safari. It's in nature. There is an animal that is the bullseye, right? It stands out in the African plain. What animal stands out more than anything else in the No, it doesn't blend into anything.
Oh, hang on, giraffes blend.
A lion.
No, a lion blends into the grass. What colors?
Peacock.
A
zebra.
zebra.
Yep.
Okay, a zebra by definition does not blend into its background. It is a, if God wouldn't create it, we can say that it is a stupid design, but God created it, so there's a reason, right?
Animal.
So zebras are beautiful, and it's a good favorite to have. It's in Swahili, it's called a donkey with stripes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. And in I think it was in Gaza that they in their safari they had a donkey that they painted stripes on it. It was in the news there. It was they had a donkey, they painted stripes on it and said they had a zebra. So a zebra makes no sense in the safari plain, right? Everything is brown, or in good seasons it's green, and most animals have some sort of blending. And the gray animals, by the way, elephants, rhinos, if you look at them out in the big plain, often it's hard to actually see them because it's hard to spot gray, and they often cover themselves in some dirt. It's very hard to spot them until you realize how big they are and you get closer. Zebras you spot from a mile away. Now, a zebra by itself will be eaten in a moment. But a zebra has one of the world's strongest camouflages because it camouflages into other zebras. Okay, this is called herd evolution, and it because of its stripes and the way that it blends into the other zebras, if a zebra is inside a herd, no predator can lock in on it. So the way that lions and cheetahs and other predators in the safari hunt is they need to target onto something specific. And how did scientists find this? Because the scientists were marking zebras to be able to track, to follow them, and every zebra that was marked was eaten by a predator within a few days. Wow. Because as soon as it has something that makes it stand out, right, it gets eaten. Right? But while it is blending in with the others, it protects itself. which means as a group, we are more protected. As individuals, you are right. You as an individual potentially are putting yourself more in danger by wearing a Star of David, by having a kippah, by having tzitzit, by having something that will out you as a Jewish person. However, if you don't have that, then in New Zealand, they don't know that there are Jews. They don't know how many Jews there are. But if people are walking around and they see a Jewish star, they see people walking around. I was driving the other day past Glen Innes and I saw a Chabadnik walking around in the street, right? And you're like, oh, look, a Jewish person, right? Like it is something that if it's part of the regular view in New Zealand, then people go, oh, there are Jews in New Zealand. If you ask the average Indian that lives in India how many Jews there are billions of Jews. Why? Because of the amount of Israelis that travel through India. There's the path that Israelis travel through has been nicknamed the Hummus path. Okay? And the Indians that live on that path will tell you that Israel is the largest country in the world and that there are billions of Jews because all they see day in and day out are Israelis. So they're convinced that we are that size.
Whereas multiplies
Right?
the stars.
And when you listen to interviews that are happening on the street and people are asking, how many Jewish states are there, right? People go, must be 50, right? We hear about these Jews all the time, must be a lot.
How big is
Right?
Israel?
How big is Israel, right? But even by the biggest estimations, right, there's 15 million Jews, right? We make up less than 0.02% of the world's population, right? And yet we're always under everybody's microscope. So if we're under the microscope, we may as well be doing the right thing and not trying to behave in a way for the microscope.
The funny thing is, before we finish, start, there's a lot of Kiwis, many Kiwis, don't even know what a Jew is.
Yeah. I had that on the flight yesterday. I was coming back from Napier. I was doing kashrut over there. A guy sat down next to me and says, I was on the flight with you this morning. What did you come to do? I said, I was doing audits for factories. He says, what kind of audits? I said, kosher audits. It's like, I've never met a Jew. Let me ask you questions. So we had a whole flight and I taught him.
Did he ask nice questions?
He asked great questions. We had wonderful conversations, but he
Invited you for dinner for a barbecue?
But we had a wonderful flight and wonderful discussion, but a lot of times.
Do you know who knows more about Jews in the New Zealand? Samoans.
Yeah.
I was on a job the other day and he said to me, your surname is not South African.
Yes.
Normal South African. I said, no, it's a Jewish surname. Oh my God. And it goes on at a tangent. I was in Israel 5 years ago.
Yeah. Look, we have a lot of good friends out here in this side of the world. There are a lot of islands that have very strong love and ties to Israel.
And when he shook my hand to say goodbye, I lost most just all my feeling. He got hands on a bunch of bananas.
Okay, so we on page 94 finished the last part of the Shema, and the last part of the Shema. What word does it end with? So look at where the pasuk ends. Where does the passage end?
Emet.
Before that. So you'll notice that the emet comes after the end of the Shema.
Yeah.
Right? And this is an important thing to remember because the pasuk doesn't end with emet. It ends with Ani Hashem Elokechem. Okay, and because of that, we have a stop, and then we say emet. Now, everything that we're going to be saying now is going to be a affirmation for what we have previously said in the Shmas. But before we do that, I realized that we haven't counted the Omer, so we're going to count the Omer, and then we'll continue. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספירת העומר היום 42 יום שהם 6 שבועות בעומר הרחמן הוא יחזיר לנו את עבודת בית המקדש למקומה במהרה בימינו, אמן, סלע.
Selah.
Next week, we will be at 7 weeks, and then we will go into Shavuot the night after. So very exciting. We're on the week. Okay, so we have the next passage is a passage of affirmation, and because of this, you are not allowed to stop between the word emet and the word Veyatziv. Okay, so this is a halacha of when are you allowed to stop in the middle in Shema? Okay, and for what purposes? So, for example, you are in the middle of davening. At what point are you allowed to say hello, to respond hello to someone who has addressed you? Can you say hello to anyone who's addressed you? A friend who has said hi to you and you're in the middle of the Amidah, can you stop and respond to them? What if that person is your father? What if that person is your rabbi? What if that person is the king, right? Different people have a different level of what we would say for respect or fear that we would respond to them, right? Today we don't really have a monarchy in the way that we really would, that we think about it as like having a king and the power of a king, and the prime minister can wait if they're coming to greet you. But in the time that the halacha is being written, you could, if there was a high-ranking general that would pass by you and say hello and you didn't respond, he can kill you, right? This is a dangerous situation. So at what points are you allowed? Do you need to stop? And the answer is, clearly, in the middle of a chapter of Shema, you are not allowed to stop out of respect. So if your father or your rabbi walks in, right, and says, hey, good morning, you're not allowed to respond. You finish, and then between the passage of Shema and Vehaya, and between the passage of Vehaya and Vayomer, which means between the first and the second and the second and the third, you are allowed to respond. If a king, right, or someone that it was dangerous not to respond to, said to you, even in the middle, you were allowed to stop. However, there's a question of what about this next section? And it says, in this next section, between Hashem Elokechem Emet and Veyatziv, you are not allowed to stop. And this is so strong that you're not allowed to stop. You're not, if your Abba or your rabbi or someone that out of respect comes and says hello to you, you are not allowed to respond to them in this point. Okay, and I don't remember as far as fear if you're allowed to stop also over here or not. I know that in the Amidah we don't stop for anything. But in this kind of situation, right, it's emphasizing that there's something really important here. Now, there are opinions in halacha that say that if you said the first 3 chapters of the Shema and you didn't continue and say the Veyatziv, V'nachon, V'kayam, that entire section, you didn't say Shema, right? It's that important to it. And why? Because it is the affirmation to everything that we are saying. So, because we don't always finish at the same time as the Chazan repeats and says, Hashem Elokechem Emet, and is finishing the last passage with the stamp of Emet, with truth. That is how we are finishing, and continues right on and goes, Hashem Elokechem Emet V'yatziv V'nachon. So if you look in some Sidurim, in this Sidur, it says, Hani Hashem Elokechem, and then the Emet comes right afterwards. It has Hashem Elokechem Emet in the middle, and then it starts V'yatziv, the next passage. You do find siddurs that have Ani Hashem Elokechem, and then it says afterwards, Emet V'yatziv, right? That the Emet is already connected to the next paragraph, as it actually is connected. That is where it comes from, right? So let's understand the words that we are saying. It is emet, it is true. These things that we just said, it is true. Veyatziv, it is certain. Vikayam, right? Also notice that it starts with Veyatziv. Whenever you have a vav like that, it is what's called vav hachibur, which means the vav that connects things, right? So if I'm saying we have ugiyot v'chalav, I have cookies and milk, right? The vav is the equivalent of the word and, right? So over here it says and certain, right? That is a weird way to start a sentence. But if you say it is true and is certain, and right, then that makes more sense. So it is true and it is certain, and it is nachon. What does the word nachon mean? What's the root?
It's an agreement. Isn't it?
It is an
you
agreement.
Hear people saying nachon. I mean,
Yeah,
you hear
so-
Israeli speaking.
Affirmative.
Yeah,
So
that's
what is the root? Look at the word nachon. What would be the root of it? The root of the word in a 2-letter word of it.
I don't know enough Hebrew. Help.
The root of it would be ken,
Oh, ken, as in yes.
as in yes, right? It is nachon. It is yes, right? It is v'nachon v'kayam, and it is enduring. V'yashar, and it is straight. It is straightforward, right? V'ne'eman, and it is faithful. V'ahuv, and it is loved. V'chaviv, and it is endured. V'nichmad. If I'm mistranslating stuff over here, I'm freestyle translating. So if there, yes, okay. V'chaviv, and it is endured. V'nichmad, and it is sweet. V'na'im, and it is comfortable. V'nora, and it is awesome or awful, depends on how you want to use that word. Ve'adir, and it is amazing. Umetukan, and it is prepared. Umekubal, and it is accepted. V'tov, and it is good. V'yafeh, and it is nice. Hadavar hazeh aleinu la'olam va'ed. This thing that we have said, for us forever. In other words, our affirmation that we are saying is much like the affirmation that we said of Shema, right? So we start out with saying, Shema Yisrael, I am affirming that what I'm about to say is a declaration. Now, after I have finished these 3 passages, let's sum them up again. The first passage is, I am agreeing and connecting to God. The second passage is, I am accepting upon myself the mitzvot, the commitment of actually living my life according to the covenant. And the third one is, I will walk around with a mitzvah that will remind me of my commitment, right? I can't just ignore the fact that I made a commitment. I'll actually show that I have that commitment. And the mitzvah that we said, that you have a mitzvah to remember that Hashem took us out of Egypt your entire life. Every single day you have a mitzvah to remember that Hashem took us out of Egypt, and we will combine those together. And what am I going to say? I'm affirming that all of these things that I said are true. I once went to the rabbi and in my community, and I said, I gave a nice idea of something that I wanted to know his opinion on. And he said, it's a nice idea, but if you look after Shema, it says emet, it is true, and then there's 15 steps until you get to and it's nice. He says the difference between nice and true is about 15 steps. So he says you have a nice idea. Is it true? I don't know. Okay, but it stayed with me. So at least I remembered that. I don't remember what the idea was,
lovely.
but I remember that. So we are agreeing to everything that we have said. Emet Elohei Olam Malkeinu Tzur Yaakov Magen Ishenu. It is true, our God forever and ever. The stone of Yaakov. So tzur, again, whenever we use it, it is a flint. It is a rock that creates fire from within itself, right? And it is an unshakable rock, right? Like whenever we're referring to God as so tzur Yaakov, the rock of Yaakov, the one who Yaakov, who has out of the 3 forefathers, he has the roughest life. He's always escaping. He has a rough life, and he always has God to lean on, right? So even when we're in let's call it a Yaakov state of mind, right? We still always have God to rely on. Magen Ishenu, the shield of our Redeemer, Ledor Vador Hu Kayam. From generation to generation, he exists. Ushmo Kayam, and his name exists. Uvekiso Nachon, Umalchuto Ve'emunato La'ad Kayamet. And his chair, his throne, is steady, it is Nachon, it is true. Umalchuto Ve'emunato, and his kingship and our belief in him forever exists. All of this is an understanding of from generation to generation, right? Is an understanding that we're gonna talk about in the Amida. So next class we're going to start already the Amida, regardless of where we're finishing tonight. We're gonna start with the Amida and understanding a bit of what that prayer is, and then we'll take it apart step by step. But an understanding of it is that we constantly repeat in the name of our forefathers, right? And this is an important thing because you hear a lot of times that saying of my grandfather was a rabbi, right? There's where we came from, and while there's a lot of joking about it in the Jewish world, if it's not about who your grandfather was, it's who you are, who your grandchildren will be, it's what you're leaving behind. There's something that we do repeat constantly, and it is remember who our grandparents were. Remember that we come from Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, that who our mothers were, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. Right? Remember what they were willing to give up for a relationship with you. So while we are, the shluchi kid in the family, and we're not always the best, and we're not always doing what we're supposed to, but you had a good relationship with those who came before us, extend that to us as well. Right? So from generation to generation, you have protected previous generations, right? Protect us as well. Udvarav chaim v'kayamim, ne'emanim u'nichmadim la'ad u'le'olmei olamim. So, and his things are, that the things that he says, the Torah, are alive and they exist, and they are reliable and they are sweet forever and forever and forever and ever. Now, what does it say there in parentheses?
It says to kiss the tzitzit.
Kiss the tzitzit.
So why that particular moment?
Okay, so for that we go back a second. This is a custom, okay?
Yes.
It is a custom that a lot of Sidurs put in, but it is a custom. And it is a similar custom to kissing the mezuzah, right? Where does it say to kiss a mezuzah?
No,
right? In no place does it say you kiss a mezuzah, right? In no place does it say you kiss the Torah when it passes by you,
yes.
Right? Yet this is something that inherently we know. You pass by a mezuzah, you kiss the mezuzah. The Torah passes by you, kiss the Torah, right? We kiss that is precious to us, and we do things in a symbolic way to show acceptance of certain things. I am saying the mitzvah of tzitzit, I am wearing tzitzit, I am kissing them to show, this is tzitzit, this is what I am remembering. It is dear to me. There are plenty of customs that do not kiss their tzitzit in this part at all, not in every time that tzitzit is mentioned, and not over here either. A lot of symbolic things are to put us in a mindset. Why do we eat an apple and honey? If you eat an apple and honey, will you have a sweeter year? Will it create an objective reality?
Apparently, yes.
Apparently, right? So if you go to the ocean and you throw out the garbage from your pockets, right? Are your sins washed away, right? There's a lot of symbolism that is supposed to put you in a mindset, right? It is, I am doing things to show that this is where I want to be. I will eat the fish head to become a leader, right? This is what Chinese medicine is based off of, right? Chinese medicine is based off of if you have eye problems, eat something that has really good eyes, eat its eyeballs. If you have hearing problems, eat ears of a bat, because you'll get its hearing, right? This is why there's a lot of poaching problems attributed to the Chinese, as they will hunt very strong animals and eat them, because eating a tiger or eating a lion or using taking powder from a rhino's horn and things like this will give you strength and fertility and all of these things that there's an understanding of it and attribution. We have that in Judaism in other ways, right? In these types of ways of an understanding of I am doing something to create a mindset of what I would like to bring into this world. And I am kissing the mezuzah, I am acknowledging what is in the mezuzah, right? I am saying I'm walking into a house that God is a part of the people's lives that are over here, right? I come in, there's a mezuzah, that means these people have agreed that God is one and that we should follow their mitzvot. We should follow God's mitzvot. Therefore, I will acknowledge it. I kiss it, right? The Torah passes by me. I'm acknowledging it, right? That is the sweetness of it. The tzitzit, as I mentioned beforehand, right, and we talked about it more in length last week, are there to remind us of the mitzvot. So if I'm wearing tzitzit, and it says, and you should see them, and I should look at them, right? How do I know? I'm talking about the tzitzit. Kiss the tzitzit as a way of putting yourself in the mindset. When I mentioned tefillin in the first two parts of Shema, we kiss the tefillin. It says you put them on your arm, kiss the tefillin of your arm. The tefillin of your head, you kiss the tefillin of your head, right? It's to put you in this type of mindset, okay? So there is over here basically some sort of an understanding of that over here, the things that are that we have acknowledged beforehand, they are sweet. You kiss the tzitzit in a way of kissing the sweetness of the mitzvot that the tzitzit are representing, and you put it down. Al avotenu ve'aleinu ve'al banenu ve'al dorotenu ve'al kol dorot zerei Yisrael avadecha. On our fathers and on us, on our children and on our generation and all the generations of all of your nations, Israel. Right? This is what we mentioned beforehand. Right? It's from generation to generation, it gets passed down. This is one long blessing that ends, that ends in Ga'al Yisrael, right? So in page 94, right, you'll see that basically all of this from Veyatziv until the end is really just one long blessing. So I'm going to go through it in like bullet points and get to the end, and then we'll focus on that today. Ala Rishonim, and the first ones and the last ones, it is a good and strong thing that you have that you have made this covenant with us that should not be passed. And it is true that you are our God and the God of our fathers, our King and the King of our fathers, our Redeemer and the Redeemer of our fathers. The all of these things again repeat what we just said in the last paragraph. Why? Because poetry repeats itself, right? This is part of an understanding of all poetry, is poetry needs to say the same thing in multiple ways to show something dear. Page 96, Ezrat Avotenu, the helper of our forefathers. And this continues down to, it tells us the story of God taking us out of Egypt and saving us and splitting the sea and drowning the Egyptians. And it says, you'll see, go to where the number 2 pops up in the middle over there, and it says, Echad mehem lo notar, it covers, the ocean covers them, the Egyptians, and one of them does not survive, right? None of them survive but one. So there's a midrash that tells the story of, so that the other nations will know what had happened over there. Paro is the witness. He bears witness to his nation and his empire crumbling, so that he can bear witness as a punishment to him, right? Everybody is punished at the sea, right? This is a part of the Midrashim that are told about the splitting of the sea. It says there are those, it says that there are some that drowned, it says in Az Yashir, some that drowned like straw and some that drowned like Led Zeppelin, right? That was where they got the name from, right? is that they fall down, right, like a chunk of lead, right, in the ocean is that there were those like that. So the wicked ones, right, they were all wicked, all different levels of Nazis, right? But there were those who were uber Nazis and those who were, kleiner Nazis. So it depends on how wicked you were. The real wicked one, the minorly wicked ones drowned quickly. They died quickly. But the ones who were extra evil, they drowned like straw, which means they drown and then they come up for air and they think they have hope and they drown again. And then they come up again for air and they drown again, right? Like a straw until eventually it gets to the bottom, right? So each one got his punishment based off of his behavior. And it says that everybody saw it says that Am Yisrael sees the Egyptians dead on the shore, right? And the Midrash says every single person saw the Egyptian that tormented them specifically, right? So each one got their punishment. What is Paro's punishment, right? What happens to Hitler, right? Like, you end up having the Nazis, some get released, some don't, some go back to their life, some get exiled, some go through whatever imprisonment that they go through. What happens to Eichmann? What happens to those who need, right, the masterminds behind it, right? Their punishment is execution, right? But not before seeing everything they built crumble, right? So Paro, according to the Midrash, sees everything crumble. He sees his army destroyed. He goes back, now he has no slaves, he has no servants, he has no nation. It's all crumbled into nothing. And his empire will fall apart. And his punishment is to die with that knowledge, right? So that's where there's one that didn't, one of them that survived. And because of this, after all of this, and this basically, Ezrat Avotenu tells the story from Egypt till redemption, and then Am Yisrael sang this song. And they say, Al zot shibchu ahovim v'romemu el. For this, the loved ones praise you. V'natnu yedidim zmirot, shirot v'tishbachot. And they gave, your beloved ones gave song and praise, brachot ve'odaot, blessings and thanks, lemelech el chai v'kayam, for a king that is forever lasting, ram v'nisa, gadol v'nora, mashpil geim u'magbia shfalim, a high sitting king that is big and awesome, that will push down those who are full of themselves and rise those who are beneath. This is a Hanukkah kind of mantra of those who are strong and many and are full of themselves ultimately fall in the hands of those who are small and the underdog in the story. Motzi Asirim, redeemer of the liberator of the prisoners, Ufodeh Anavim, and he redeems the humble, Ve'ozer Dalim, and he helps the poor, Ve'oneh le'amo be'et shavam elav, and he answers the prayers of his nation when they cry out to him. Then we stand up at this point for the Amidah, and we reenact the prayer that is one of the most powerful prayers that the nation ever says. As a nation, we are, think of the mindset of where we're at, right? This is the first song and dance that ever happens in the world. It wasn't pretty, right? This isn't a choreographed dance. This is people are ecstatic because they don't know what their bodies are supposed to do when they are completely free for the first time in generations. And there was a slow process. There was Moshe comes and tells the nation, I am going to free you. He goes to Paro, and then Paro makes things worse. They say, please do not go and talk to Paro again. Then he goes and he announces that there will be the plague of blood. There is a quiet period of a few days that the Jews are not suffering. Maybe we will be redeemed. Maybe this is the end. The plague goes away and Paro becomes harder on the Jewish people. In that period of a ceasefire, right? Paro intensifies.
We're watching it again, aren't we?
Oh, 100%. Okay, the last redemption is supposed to be like the redemption of Egypt on steroids, right? It's supposed to have parallels that are undeniable, right? And it's every single one of the plagues, things stop, and things get worse, and then there's another plague, and you think it's going to be the end, and you think that now Mashiach is coming, and there's no way that we're not being redeemed tomorrow, and then it ends, and you go, but we're so close, and it gets worse, and then it goes up and down, right? There's something that needs to happen. It's something that needs to happen internally. It's something that needs to happen externally for not only for our nation, but for other nations that need to actually see something, right? And that can be another whole discussion of do they need to go through and what do we need to go through? And then after that, there is they're finally free. They get to the ocean and the Egyptians chase them, right? Like, think of the horror of being liberated from the Nazis, and then you think that you're going home, you think everything is fine, suddenly the Nazi army comes and is chasing you down, right? There is nothing that would break a person's spirit more than that, right? And then they're saved and they see that the Egyptians are dead. They cannot harm them anymore. There's no way that they will ever be harmed by these Egyptians again. So what do? They sing and they dance and they praise God. And this is the prayer that in a way we reenact every time before the Amidah. We stand up and we say, Tehilot le'el elyon, praise the God of the heavens. Baruch hu mevorach, blessed he and forever. Moshe u'vnei Yisrael, lecha anu shira, besimcha rabba ve'amru chulam. Moshe and the nation, they will answer to this great miracle with a song, with immense joy, and they will say, Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh, nora te'ilot osef ele. Who is like you, God, in the gods, right? Like, who is like you in the cosmos, in the rulers, in the creators, right? There are Mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh, nora te'ilot osef ele. Who is like you in that is praised with holiness, that is awesome in everything that he does he creates wonders. So while we say this in several prayers, all the other idols that people pray to are false, and our God is the true God. We repeat this and we're saying over here, all right, who is like you amongst the gods, right? Amongst the Egyptian gods that they have been praying to, who is like you, right? This is a rhetorical question. This is not acknowledging that there are other gods. This is announcing that the other gods are not gods, right? Shira chadasha, a new song. Shibchu geulim leshimcha al sfat hayam, yachad kulam hodu ve'emlechu ve'amru. The new song was praised to you by your freed people for your name on the shore of the ocean. Together they all came together and acknowledged your sovereignty and said, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. God shall rule for all eternity. Tzur Yisrael, the rock of Israel. Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael. Stand up for your nation of Israel. And redeem your nation and liberate. As you said, Yehuda and Israel. We are, which one of that? We're Yehuda. We are the kingdom of Yehuda. And as the kingdom of Israel is returning now to Israel, starting with a lot of different groups that have returned, either as individuals or as a collective. So questions about the Ethiopians, you have groups in Zimbabwe like the Lemba tribe, you have groups in Nigeria like the Igbos, you have groups in some Muslim countries that there's like over 1 million that claim that they're Jewish. You have in different places like in India that there's the B'nai Menashe and B'nai Ephraim, all of these groups that have lineage that they have been gone for 2,000 years, but they are part of the Jewish people or the Israelite people, right? And are starting to come back, right? So redeem Yehuda and Israel. Redeem both halves of the nation and bring them back to the nation. Go'aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Kedosh Israel. Redeem us Hashem, the Master of Legions. His name is Kadosh Israel, the Holy of Israel. Baruch Atah Hashem, bless you, God. Ga'al Israel, the Redeemer, or who redeemed Israel. Who will redeem Israel.
Can I go back because I don't quite understand the Judah and Israel?
Yes.
Israel, Jacob was Israel.
Correct.
Judah was one of the sons.
So we have we will do a much longer discussion just on this because it is really interesting, but very briefly, there is in the time of the kings. So you have Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, David, Shlomo.
Yep.
Shaul is from the tribe of Binyamin. He is the first king, and he is anointed as someone who has the right criteria. He fails, and David becomes king. King David is the ultimate king that we talk about. His son, Shlomo, takes over, builds the temple.
Also Benjamin?
No, so they're right from the tribe of Yehuda.
Okay, so
Okay.
David already.
Yeah.
Is from,
So David is right from the tribe of Yehuda, and this is a kingdom, the kingdom of Yehuda, right? Like we finally have the promise that Yaakov gave Yehuda, which is the kings will come from you. You are a ruler, the kings will come from you. Okay, we have it, King David. Then his son Shlomo. Shlomo builds the Beit HaMikdash. Years later, he dies. When he dies, he anoints his son, right? Or his son is anointed. Rechavam. Rechavam is the son of Shlomo, and makes an announcement. The nation comes to him and says, please take it easy on us. Your father was a very hard king to live under, okay? He taxed us a lot, and this was for diplomatic reasons. Shlomo, first of all, lived extravagantly. He had 1,000 wives, right? He did it for diplomatic reasons. He was married to basically a princess from every kingdom, so that he can grow the diplomatic relations with every kingdom. This causes a lot of problems inside the nation itself, as multiple wives bring upon. What do they bring?
Children.
Idol worshiping. Okay? They bring idol worshiping because they're coming from different places and they bring their idols with them, and this brings a lot of idols into Israel. Okay? It brings idols into Israel, and it causes that as a problem. He taxes the nation so he can build Beit HaMikdash, the temple. The nation asks his son and says, please be gentle with us. And he responds with the worst response possible, which is, if you think my father was bad, you haven't seen anything yet. And he brings the response that he says is, my father whipped you with whips and I will whip you with scorpions, right? It was,
Nice man.
yeah. Well, it was a bad advice that he got from his friends. It says that he refused to listen to the elders and he listens to his friends' advice. And he goes and is not considered a great king.
Now, how was he chosen with the multiple wives?
So there is a firstborn for the majority of how a king is chosen. It usually goes by firstborn son. Sometimes it had to do with some sort of decree through one of the prophets, or internal wars inside the family to decide who, right? But King David wants to anoint Shlomo and his sons. He has a few sons that fight to try to get. This is Avshalom, who tries to dethrone his father, and ultimately the rebellion fails and Avshalom dies. But he tries to dethrone his father and become king in his lifetime because he wants it, and he knows that he's not going to if it goes through a natural way of succession, right? There's a few other characters, more minor characters that are discussed, but Shlomo ultimately is promised that he will become king. He is not the oldest, by the way. He is one of the younger ones, okay? But he is promised that he will become. So Shlomo has the son, Rechavam, and Rechavam is a bad king, not liked by the people. Up until this point, the Mishkan, right, the tabernacle, with the Aron Habrit was in Shiloh. And because it was in Shiloh, the nation worshipped in Shiloh. King David decides to bring it to Yerushalayim. Shlomo decides to build a temple. Why does that impact us? Right? If you decide that you want to go to Jerusalem, how does that impact the rest of the nation? The nation splits into the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Yehuda. Yerovam ben Nevat becomes king of the kingdom of Israel. And there, they worship God through altars as opposed to in the temple. And they say, it's been a generation since there's a temple, right? This new idea of you modern Jews of building a house to contain God is so un-Jewish. God is everywhere. Let's worship him somewhere else. And because of this, there's a split. And that split we are suffering from till to this day. Within a few hundred years, the kingdom of Israel they're constantly fighting between the different kingdoms. They're fighting external enemies, and internally they're fighting each other all the time. This is the majority of the Book of Kings are these types of stories. Sometimes the kings have a good alliance and they will fight an external enemy together, but plenty of times they are fighting and killing each other. And then the kingdom of Israel is fighting the Assyrian kingdom and loses and gets exiled. A few hundred years later, the Babylonians exile us, the kingdom of Judea, to Babylonia, which is the same geographical area, and it is around the same, and the Babylonians conquer the Assyrians. And by the time we get there, the Israelites are gone. The whole kingdom, we don't know who they are, where they disappeared to, because they get thrown around the world. And that's why we don't actually know who they are.
Is that why we think like the Ethiopians and the Igbos and so on? Are they supposed to be from Israel?
So almost all of them have, pretty much every tribe that can trace itself back to the ancient Israelite kingdom can trace itself back about 1,500 years to Yemen. 1,500 years ago, they claimed they were in Yemen, and then they were they escaped from there or exiled from there in one of the
But we
bad
don't know
times.
whether they're Judah or Israel.
So we know that of them as Israel.
As Israel.
Yeah. So we know that we lost track. So Judean Jews, right, like what we would refer to as Jews, Yehudim, right, come from the tribe of Judah, are going to be Ashkenazic, Sephardic Jews. Question about Yemenite Jews, if they're all Jews or if some of them are Israelites. Then you have Iraqi, Iranian Jews, all of these Jews that are there from the time of the first temple, from the first exile, from the second exile, where are they, right? But Northern Africa, we have a lot of Sephardic Jews that went there, but there were also other Jewish communities that were there beforehand. So it's very likely that we are somewhat mixed in, right? It could be that we have, a family that was from the tribe of Reuven that ended up sticking with us, and we do have some micro, the Jewish world today is still a microorganism of the Israelite kingdom that still does exist, and it could be that your family can trace back 2,000 years and comes from the tribe of Issachar, right? So there was a rabbi called Noam Elimelech. It was referred to as the Bnei Issachar, and he claimed that he has a lineage that traces back to the tribe of Issachar, and that's his lineage. I think that I trace back to the tribe of Shimon, mostly because I feel like it's like the impulsive Jews must be that aren't Levis, and that is how Yaakov refers to them. So I feel like my impulsivity can be traced back to Shimon. So that's Yehuda and Israel in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Now, just last sentence, because I know that due to previous conversations before the recording started. No, not at all. Okay, but we are a bit over time. So the end of this, okay, keeping in mind that this is a very, very long bracha from Emet until Ga'al Yisrael. It's one blessing, and this blessing is actually, as we mentioned before and early on in these classes, is referred to as a short blessing. So a short blessing means it only either starts or ends with Baruch Atah Hashem. A long blessing starts and ends with Baruch Atah Hashem. So even though this is 2 pages long, it is considered a short blessing because it's not about the length, it's about the content of it and the fact that it only ends with. Now, there are plenty of, there's a very long argument in the Gemara of, are you allowed to stop between, you're not allowed to stop between Ga'al Yisrael, between this blessing, and the Amidah. Can you say Amen to the blessing of Baruch Atah Hashem Ga'al Yisrael? The Chazan makes a blessing. Can you say Amen? So in communities such as this, where we announce pages and stuff like that, we do, we keep in mind that everything that we're saying between here and the Amidah, we are focusing on the fact that we are not stopping, that we're continuing. Strictly from a halachic perspective, you will travel and you'll see that a lot of, especially Ashkenazic communities, when they get to this blessing, they say Baruch Atah Hashem, and then they say Ga'al Yisrael quietly, so that no one can actually hear them saying the blessing, so that no one will say Amen, and then have a hefsek, have a break, before they start the Amidah. So next week we are going to be starting an introduction to the Amidah with the choreography and with understanding the Amidah and all the different Amidahs that we have.
Thank you, Reverend.
My pleasure.
Another great